All right, the stock market is in bear territory, and today we are going to dive into the charts and look at the levels and signals that we need to be paying attention to. Are we ready for a short-term bounce at the very least? Maybe there is a bottom that's getting formed here, but where are we at in that process? And that's what we're going to dissect in the charts right now. Quick recap, we have the double top that's in place, confirmed. We have the move lower. We have this bear flag pattern that was formed and confirmed to the downside. This is what jump-started the whole thing. Now we have the AVWAP, the anchored VWAP. That's going to be the average price of all transactions since the all-time highs. That has started to steepen dramatically. That's going to be major resistance on any kind of a bounce attempt that we get. Also, we have a declining trend line now that if we do get a bounce here in the short term, this is the key level that we want to start watching. That one and the AVWAP. Those are going to be very strong levels of resistance for price action. So the declining trend line, this red line here, and this AVWAP, which is like a little teal color, I guess. What we also want to point out is that we have this rising trend line going all the way back to the 2022 lows. It tested it here again in October of 2023. And what happened today, we gapped down right on this level, went a little bit below it intraday, and then we popped. But we still finished slightly lower, but let's be honest. You finished down 9 points on the S&P 500 when we were seeing 400-point swings. Not that bad. So while it's a flat day, it was still a very volatile day at that. But what we want to be careful of, and this is what I want to highlight. Initially, when you were seeing this huge rise over the course of a couple of years, 2023 and 2024, as a result of the AI boom, we were talking about the fact that this could be like another dot-com bubble. But the way that price action is reacting is much more like what we saw during 2020. And let me show you what I'm talking about here. In 2020, it was also essentially a decision to shut down the economy. And when we did that, we had some drastic price action. And the one thing you'll notice is that we were getting these really big one-day candle rallies, but they weren't sticking. And that's what I'm a little bit worried here, is because the price action feels very similar to like what we saw in the beginning here of March of 2020 and February of that year, as well as into later that month of March. So we get these big legs down, and then we get these one-day rallies that sucks everybody back in, gets them excited, only to pull the rug once again. That's what I'm worried about here. When you go back to 2022, it's much different than that one because it was a much more orderly pullback. You would have waves and ebbs and flows in the price action. So you would get a leg lower, and then you would get a strong bounce, a leg lower, and a sustained bounce. Yes, there were some pretty heavy days of selling, but the rallies were pretty good too. But when you look at 2020, it wasn't like that at all. 2020 was much more just like you couldn't trust a one-day bounce. And that's what I feel like we're getting out of this sell-off right now. It's going to be very hard to trust these one-day bounces. Now, the next thing we want to look at is some bigger support levels that might be influencing price action here. This one here goes all the way back to 2022. This was the highs that were created that year before the big sell-off that took place throughout most of that year. This price level is essentially support for the market right now. That wasn't necessarily the one that I was expecting to offer up some support, but perhaps in conjunction with this rising trend line off of the 2022 lows and support at the 2022 highs. It's kind of interesting how those two levels are influencing the market right now. The lows and highs from that year are coming together to offer up some support. And furthermore, if we draw this line right here going all the way back to the 2020 lows, yes, you do have additional support that could be coming into play. So all of that, plus we can throw the anchored VWAP too. I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you here, but there's a lot of support in this area. So it doesn't surprise me that we're getting some bounce activity here. If this is the lowest that the market gets, we start to figure out the terrace and the market starts to go higher again. Yes, this will have been an incredible buying opportunity, but we don't really have that much confirmation yet outside the fact that so far support's holding. But what we want to be able to see is that support does three things: tests, holds, and then bounces. So we're definitely getting the test, and for now we're getting a hold, but we don't really have that bounce to really confirm that at the very least we're getting a short-term bounce. The hysterics in the stock market right now are absolutely peak. Everybody's coming out of the woodwork on the stock market and pretending to be an expert. I get that. I've been around for a number of these sell-offs going all the way back to the .com, so I've seen a thing or two. But the one thing that I would say is that you don't have to pick out the bottom. You don't have to find the bottom. You want that bounce that comes off of the bottom, that middle section, that's what we're aiming for here. We don't have to try to catch the falling knife because right now it's a double-edged sword. You don't want to be the person that's trying to go out there, throw their capital at it only to be wrong, because like what we saw in 2020, you can have some serious one-day rallies that don't hold. So if we get a rally tomorrow, I wouldn't necessarily be optimistic that it's going to hold. Look for that confirmation, look for that follow-through, and only test the waters with small amounts of capital. Don't go like full 100%, because then what you're risking is essentially a hard reversal. For me personally, I'm going to get gradually back into the market. I've been able to avoid this entire sell-off right here, and that's been huge. But what I don't want to do is start trying to get ahead of myself and try to pick a bottom, because nobody knows where that bottom is going to be. We can look for the clues on the charts, and that's what we're doing here. We're trying to find the clues that are showing us where that bottom might ultimately be, but we need price to confirm it for us. If you enjoyed this video, I would encourage you to like and subscribe and let me know down in the comments below, how are you faring during this market sell-off? I know it's a really testy time. Did you take part in that 400-point swing early on this morning? Were you able to make any day trades off of that? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you guys, and God bless.